It's happening. After years of silence, secrets, and frostbite-level tension inside the kingdom, the imperial court has finally let its flawless mask slip. And what's leaking through that crack is nothing short of incendiary. This story doesn't open with trumpets or grandeur. It starts with a single, echoing creak, a forgotten door shifting open in the depths of the citadel, a door locked tight for nearly a decade. Behind it, insiders say, the High Council signed off on something irreversible. Not a warning, not a delay, a final decree. One powerful enough to alter the destiny of two young heirs forever. Aiden Arcturus and Leora Dawn, the children of Prince Kael and Lady Serene. For years, the court stayed motionless while the world debated, bickered, and obsessed over what the future held for Kael and Serene's children. The crowds demanded answers, the press boiled with theories, yet the court remained frozen. Not a whisper. That silence thickened year after year until it felt like a verdict of its own. But now, that silence has been obliterated. The ancient machine built on ironclad laws and centuries of ritual has quietly struck Aiden and Leora from the royal order entirely. No titles, no standing in the lineage, no ceremonial rites, not even a fleeting mention in the chronicles that map the empire's bloodline. And here's the chilling part. None of it was announced. No glossy statements, no grand addresses. The court simply filed the edict cold, silent, final. Because to them, this was never about emotion or retribution. It was about something older, harsher, and infinitely more powerful: protocol. To understand why the crown acted now and why this choice cannot be undone, you have to go back more than a century, to an era when another ruler decided who counted as royal and who would be erased from the narrative entirely. The year was no glossy statements, no grand addresses. The court simply filed the edict cold, silent, final. Because to them the year was 1917. The world was burning, kingdoms were falling, and deep inside the Iron Citadel, King Alistair V lifted his pen and carved destiny into law with the sovereign mandate of 1917. A decree so rigid, so absolute, that even modern heirs still bow to its command. That ancient order asked a single, merciless question: who truly belongs to the throne? Not who feels worthy, or who dazzles the crowds, or who marries into prestige. Who, by law, by lineage, by sacred right, can claim the crown's acknowledgement? King Alistair drew 3 immovable lines. First, verified royal blood. Second, birth registration according to imperial protocol. Third, consecrated blessing by the High Church. Miss one and you vanish. No appeals. Fast forward a century and those same rules now rise like a wall between Prince Kael and Lady Serene's children and the legacy their father once inherited by birth. The first fracture appeared the moment Aiden arrived in 2019. To the outside world, it looked enchanted, a glowing father, a radiant mother, a perfect new heir. But within the palace archives, the documents told another story. On Aiden's birth record, Serene's full name was suddenly removed, replaced only with her formal title, the High Lady of the Crescent. It wasn't a clerical fix. It was rewritten. And that matters. Birth records are sacred legal artifacts, not tools for optics. Serene insisted she never approved the alteration, that the court changed it without her knowledge. Court officials denied everything, claiming she consented. The fallout, doubt. Not rumor mill chatter, but official legal uncertainty woven into the royal registry. And in a monarchy, uncertainty is lethal. That single amendment was enough to rattle the foundation of Aiden's legitimacy. From that day on, his standing in the hierarchy became unstable. Then came Leora, born in June 2021. The public expected the usual spectacle: formal proclamations, sanctioned physicians. The polished ritual that accompanies every royal birth. Instead, the announcement arrived, not from the capital, but from the coastline of Aurora Bay. No royal midwives, no ceremonial healers, no balcony unveiling, just a digital announcement. To royal traditionalists, it wasn't merely unconventional, it was unthinkable. Royal births are meant to be national rites, witnessed, authenticated, and etched into the empire's archives. But this time, the crown's signature was nowhere on the paperwork. No imperial registrar, no high church blessing. For the first time in modern history, an heir arrived without the throne's direct sanction. And in royal language, that silence was thunderous. It wasn't refusal in speech, it was refusal in absence. Still, Serene celebrated her daughter's arrival with unshaken joy. Months later, she released images from Leora's blessing ceremony in California. It was tender, radiant, deeply personal, surrounded by love, not protocol. But to the High Church, it held no official standing. The rite was never recognized by the sacred authorities. And to the monarchy, that alone was enough to sever the child's spiritual tether to the crown. Royal christenings aren't symbolic gestures. They are the legal ritual that binds a child to the empire's divine and constitutional lineage. Without that seal, the crown withholds acknowledgement, which meant two fractures now existed. Aiden's altar, birth registry, and Leora's unrecognized blessing. Two seemingly small documents with consequences that would reshape the Crescent family's future. But the story runs deeper. Serene's public persona. From the moment she stepped into royal life, Serene crafted an identity-merging silver screen allure with imperial elegance. Every interview, project, and brand whisper carried a trace of noble prestige. Her new lifestyle label, Radiant Valley Atelier, shimmered with regal suggestion. A modern noblewoman in California raising imperial children. Its power depended entirely on those royal threads. Without them, the illusion dissolves. Because if Aiden and Leora are no longer recognized as heirs, the narrative shifts. Serene isn't a trailblazing royal rewriting tradition. She becomes a former noble living a private life in Aurora Bay. The family brand loses its crown, quite literally, and insiders say Serene understood this better than anyone. Her public identity, her past, her image, all intertwined with the titles her children might never receive. So when the court began quietly sealing doors, Kale unraveled. Midnight calls, private envoys, frantic appeals, he tried every route. Those close to him say his voice wasn't heated, but terrified. He begged the council, insisting that stepping away from royal duties shouldn't mean his children vanished from the dynasty's record. They were the grandchildren of the reigning sovereign. They bore imperial blood. Surely that carried weight. But the court's answer was as merciless as its stone corridors. This is not about sentiment, one official allegedly told him. This is about structure, lineage, and the preservation of the crown. No warmth, no negotiation, only finality. And for Kale, it was devastating. The institution he once called home was now carving a permanent border, with his children stranded on the far side. The monarchy, he finally understood, is not a family in the human sense. It is a mechanism, and mechanisms do not feel. Then came the final strike. Deep within the Iron Citadel, the crown completed the documents that sealed everything in law. Aiden and Leora were erased from the imperial registry. No titles, no acknowledgement, no strand in the line of succession. Their names will never appear in the vellum scrolls that list centuries of imperial heirs. No proclamation, no ritual, just ink drying on parchment and a suffocating quiet. With one motion, the dynasty accomplished what no scandal, memoir, or distance had ever achieved. It ended the Crescent lineage. The cold precision of it was staggering. The decision wasn't fueled by spite, it was crafted with calculation. The court did not battle Kale and Serene in public. It waited. While they told their truth on talk shows, in documentaries, and across streaming platforms, the crown simply observed. For the court does not engage in media warfare. It plays the long strategy, the generational one. And when the noise finally dimmed, it delivered its blow. Clean, unspoken, irreversible. By stripping the children's titles, the monarchy didn't just adjust a family tree. It ripped away the Crescent's greatest narrative, their imperial connection. Without it, there is no rival dynasty in California, no parallel line of succession, no competing legacy, just two parents, their children, and a painfully expensive quiet. Insiders murmur that this was the crown's most deliberate maneuver in decades. A silent correction of the record, ensuring that ownership of the imperial story remains where it always has, locked behind fortified gates. Because the monarchy's first loyalty is to itself. It determines who inherits its legend. Not the media, not popular sentiment, and certainly not a prince who walked away. Years from now, when someone opens those massive, leather-bound archives, they'll see countless names. Alastair, Marin, Lucien, all penned in immaculate script. But two names will be missing: Aiden, Leora. Their absence will thunder louder than any controversy ever could. They will grow up far from the frost of the capital, beneath warm western skies, racing through fields, laughing without bowing to anyone. They will have love, safety, and freedom. But they will never stand upon an imperial balcony or hear fanfare echoing in their honor. Their portraits will not line the citadel walls. Their names will not be inscribed in the chronicles that preserve imperial bloodlines, not because of who they are, but because of what the crown decreed they were not. Legacy, the monarchy insists, is not shaped by storytelling, emotion, or acclaim. It is built on rules. Rules that bend for no one, not even a prince's children. And that is how the tale concludes. Not with shouting, not with spectacle, but with stillness. The kind of stillness that devours everything. The kind that signals finality. Because in the royal world, the loudest message of all is delivered when the palace says nothing. And even after that silence drifted across the realm, the imperial citadel, there remained a strange kind of aftershock, a quiet reverberation of disbelief drifting through royal watchers, reporters, and ordinary people who had followed every twist of the Crescent family's saga. Because deep down, everyone was asking the same question. How did it come to this? How did a story that opened with bells, bouquets, and crowds roaring outside the capital gates end with two children silently erased from imperial archives behind locked chamber doors? Some claimed this wasn't cruelty at all, but restoration. That the monarchy had merely reset its lineage, trimming branches that no longer followed ancient protocol. Yet to others, it felt like punishment disguised as procedure. The same institution that once smiled for photographs after Aiden's birth was now behaving as though those smiles had never existed. The same court that once showered Kale and Serene with blessings at their wedding now refused to acknowledge their children's place in imperial history. And you can almost picture the atmosphere in Aurora Bay when the truth sank in. Serene scanning the headlines, scrolling through reactions, struggling to keep her expression steady while the world analyzed what the crown had just done. Those close to her say she grew unusually silent for days, because this time there was no interview to reshape the narrative, no statement to clarify, no strategist to reframe. The narrative had already been sealed in sovereign ink. Kale, however, did not fall silent. Friends say he paced through their California home, reliving scenes from his youth, his mother's gentleness, his brother's old loyalty, and that indelible memory of walking behind Queen Ellora's casket, learning far too young that duty always outranked emotion. And now, as a father, he realized that truth still ruled. It didn't matter that he'd sacrificed for his family or pleaded for compassion. Monarchies do not barter in feeling. They barter in continuity. And that is where the heartbreak lies. Because beneath all the grandeur and deliberate silence, there are two small children who have no idea what has unfolded. They will grow up catching fragments of the tale, snippets from documentaries, whispered remarks from classmates, old clips resurfacing on the net. One day, they'll search their own names and find questions like, why aren't Aiden and Leora royal? And the answers they'll discover won't come from their grandparents or the palace, but from the world. The same world that watched their parents' fairy tale unravel in slow motion. Yet, despite everything, there's an unexpected irony in the ending. In trying to shield itself, the crown may have triggered the very outcome it feared most. It may have handed Kale and Serene a new story to tell. A story not about privilege, but about loss. Not about royalty, but about freedom. Because even without titles, those children now belong to something the crown can no longer command, a narrative shaped far beyond its walls. And perhaps that is why, even in its silence, the monarchy feels unsettled. Because it knows that one day, when Aiden and Leora are grown enough to speak their own truth, their voices may thunder louder than any imperial decree ever issued. And that is the one thing the palace can never erase.